Hi guys, and welcome to the Lifestyle Design Secrets podcast, where we talk about fitness, nutrition, mindset, and a whole lot more. Thank you for everyone who's listened to all our episodes so far and taken the time to leave a review. If you do enjoy this episode and want the free content to keep on coming, please do take 2 seconds to leave us a 5-star review. Thanks again. Now let's dive in. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Lifestyle Design Secrets podcast. Today I've got Liam McKenzie with us. And so to give you a little bit of a background into how I know Liam, he is a trainer at 5 in Wanaka, where I go to the gym like once or twice a week, which is how I came across him. He then ran past me twice in as many days, going at the speed of light. And I thought, shit, this guy probably knows what he's doing. After a little chat or two after the gym, I was really intrigued to know more about what he did. And so here he is. I will let Liam introduce himself. Liam, what is it you do? Tell us more about yourself and what brought you to Wanaka.
Hey guys, I'm a 35, I believe. I always get confused between 34 and 35, but 35-year-old semi-professional trail runner and professional running coach that is currently moved to the beautiful town of Wanaka from Gold Coast, Australia. Reason for coming here, definitely the outdoorness and the mountains. I was the first, calling to the area, as well as a, amazing supportive community as well. So funnily enough, my trip at the start of the year was just meant to be me coming across here to check out the town, see if we could find somewhere to rent, see if it was suitable for our small young family. But yeah, the town just captured me and extended that trip for a year. So we're here for the year.
So you came over here on a recce and then just never went back?
Yeah, well, I came across a little bit early because we do trail running camp. So we take about 15 to 20 athletes, mainly through different places in Australia. So we've done 2 in New Zealand as well, but we've done about 10 mountain trail running camps. And my reasoning for coming back to Wanaka was just to scout a couple more routes and check out a few more things to do with the crew coming over. And the plan was to do the camp and then head back home. But yeah, everything just fell into place. Had some other opportunities pop up as well in terms of the running adventure side of things, and ended up locking into a lease for a year. So we're here.
I love that. And I want to hear more about the young family in a minute, because I'm 35 also. You do start to lose track when you get to this age. And I have a little 9-month-old. Also lose track of that.
Awesome.
Yeah. So how old is your little one?
She's coming up to 2.5. So fun little age. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Running around all over the place.
Yeah, my mother in particular laughs because my daughter's very, very high energy, and I was probably that and some more. So it's a little bit of a taste of my own medicine, I guess, raising someone like myself.
Don't they say your kids are like karma?
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming right back at you. And so, Liam, before we get on to meaty main course of what you eat in a day and how you support your athletes with nutrition, tell me a little bit more about, so your running camp, and you've got one happening in Wanaka?
Yeah, so we just had one actually. So we had just under 20 athletes come across, mainly from Australia. A couple were from the North Island of New Zealand, one South Island of New Zealand, and they come across on the Thursday. We introduced them into our camp. We do, a big part of the camp is not just the running side of things, it's the human connection. So that's a big part of us, bringing people in, making them feel welcome, getting like-minded people in the same environment and, making new friends, experiencing new things. So, we had them over here from Thursday through to Monday. And we take them basically through some big mountain adventures. Started the camp with a steep race up the back of Ben Lomond in And all things, I guess, not just running, but also a big focus on their nutrition, their mindset, their recovery, their sleep, and that human connection.
I'm really excited to get into all of this because it sounds like you're even geekier than me. which is awesome. It rarely happens. Like you say, it depends what circles you run in, right? But in everyday life, you very rarely come across people who are open and willing or even aware of half of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I was to join one of your camps, Liam, like, well, the Royal We, how far are they running? Are they professional athletes or semi-professional or like weekend warriors? Are they quite serious?
Yeah,
By the
so
sounds? Yeah.
this camp in particular, which we used to do it about 3-4 times a year, but this has now become more of an annual thing. I would say there's a basic level of fitness. Basic level, I guess, would be dependent on, the age.
Basic, able to run
Yeah.
up Ben Lemon.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
mostly that's a hike because it's quite steep. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would say, that would be the basis we'd be looking at. So there's no real level of high-end fitness required, but just general fitness. You can go out and be out on your feet for a certain amount of hours. You could,
Yeah.
run at a steady rate. We do have the pleasure of coaching a lot of these people as well. And if we don't, we give them, a bit of coaching guidance leading into the camp. I think to look at it from a statistics point, you'd be looking at anywhere time-wise from 4 to 10 hour days. Kilometer-wise, depending on the elevation, we're from, 5 to 30 kilometer days. They're covering, 80 to 120 kilometers over these couple of days.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, probably a bit more than average. So let's dive into it. So Liam, you coach athletes on a daily basis. That's your kind of key thing that you do. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
can anyone apply, or is it like they're professional or semi-professional sort of people?
we take on all
Mixture.
ability levels. We have, I guess, more of a structure these days where my partner, Rebecca, she would take more of the newer athletes in terms of newer to running. She would probably also predominantly coach more of the females that we have as part of our network. But for me, I would coach anywhere from everyday runner up to professional athlete. I guess we have a consult call with them at the start. We see, their type of personality, I guess their commitment. Are they getting a coach for motivation, or, do they need, just a structured plan and no motivation? So we just,
Yeah.
from that consult call, figure out between myself and my partner who would be a better fit. And usually that works into, I guess for me, I've grown up in high performance. So I'm quite a committed human being, I would say. So if you're committed and you're all in, usually a pretty good fit for me. If I'm having to drag you off the couch every day, usually my partner's going to be a better fit.
A bit of a kinder human.
Yeah, I wouldn't say.
No, I'm
What's the
joking.
word?
But
Yeah.
I think there's definitely, because I work with males and females, but it's definitely more probably at your partner's end of things and more around the motivation and why people need to make a change in the first place. I think a lot of people get into exercise without realizing they need nutrition and vice versa, or they want to lose weight and don't really realize how important the exercise component is. Like you say, getting off the couch just for motivation and mindset. So tell me a little bit about your background. And you say you've always been in high performance. So when you as an athlete, how did that all begin?
I guess my family's very sport orientated. We've had multiple cousins that have attended the Olympics, presented in Australia, or performed at a national level. And probably my grandpa was a big influence into my life and career. Getting up 4 o'clock every morning, going for a swim down at the beach, very present with, movement and health. And, basically each day is, a bit of a new opportunity to do something better.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that was a big positive influence on me. And I think just, naturally, my, what would you call it? My energy levels work quite well into sport as well. So I'm quite a competitive human being. From a young age, it was into athletics, and I guess always trying to, be a little bit better, compete at a higher level. And that's carried through from, quite a young age through to, 35.
Yeah. And how important do you reckon that is for because you're seeing more and more young boys being strapped in a classroom. They've got ADHD. Let's give them a pill.
Yeah.
Things like that. I mean, I'm assuming you may or may not have been diagnosed with something like that, but how
Yeah.
much of a part to play do you reckon the exercise from that age has had in your development and mental health?
That's an amazing point you've raised there, and it's a conversation I've had a lot with a lot of people. For me, school was, I'd say, on the more challenging side of things, because I would struggle to sit down and, pay attention to maybe something that I wasn't interested in. And luckily enough for me, I went to a lot of sporting schools, so I was able to, buff my way through school a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think it's changed over the times as well. I know when I was at school, it was quite like, sit in your desk and you have to do this and you have to do that. And, sport was, I guess, a smaller part, or movement was a smaller part of schooling. And to tie that in, I think Wanaka is a big reason why we did want to raise our child here, because they have, the kids going up the mountain in winter, they do mountain biking, they're doing triathlon, there's a big focus on health, especially, at a younger age. And that for me is a big reason why we do want to, stay here for a period of time, because I think if I had that opportunity when I was younger, I wouldn't have been diagnosed with the ADHD. I wouldn't have had as tough time at school,
I think you do have ADHD.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I reckon I do too, just undiagnosed. But I was like, yeah, I reckon you can tell sometimes in a good way.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's been helpful for you as much as it's been a challenge?
I would say it has
Different areas.
Its pros and cons. I feel like sometimes you're a little bit over the top with, trying to do too much, and you have to, complete these things. So that side of things has been a bit of a challenge. I think I've learnt, I do struggle with patience, but I have learnt over the years, how to control that energy and a little bit more relaxed in certain situations, which is, a big thing that I've never been able to do in my life. And I think I've always channeled that energy into something, whether that was sport, whether that was, a period of in the teens going out and partying and stuff. And that didn't work well for me. So I had to cut that one out and channel back into sports.
You and me both.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I still party more than I probably should, to be honest. But yeah, it's like you say, it's almost a little bit of an all or nothing feeling, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's probably going to be a challenge for you to sit here and talk for an hour, because I actually really struggle.
Yeah.
So,
no,
yeah.
If I'm committed, I'm committed. So I'm all in.
Okay,
so
good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because it is, yeah, I find it really difficult. Being self-employed is heaps better, because I can literally channel my energy where I want to. And if you do have slight tendencies towards ADHD, I'm not going to be one of those people who says I've got it without being diagnosed, but I think you can definitely notice it in yourself, and the focus when you want to be focused is really easy. And when you don't want to be focused, you're doing something you don't enjoy, which I don't think we used to have to do, in the olden days, is horrendous. And I notice the reason when I come over and I go to the hardest class all week at F45 in the cardio regard, and then go out Mount Iron, is because my focus for the rest of the day is golden.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Makes a massive, massive difference. Yeah.
And I think on that point, I was on medication for years at school, and, that was just kind of how it was managed at that point. It was like, if you do have ADHD, you're on this medication, then, you're subdued at school, you do well, you're not getting in trouble and stuff like that. Whereas I found once I left school that I was able to channel that energy into, working for myself in more exercise. Like my partner always says to me, if I'm ever in, a little bit frustrated or whatever, she's like, go out for a run, or like, have you exercised today? Because as soon as that's done, I'm good. So like, the most challenging thing for me being a professional athlete is going through periods of injury, because you do struggle to let out that energy, and then I guess it compiles over a period of time. So
yeah, and you mentioned this because I remember what you said was something about, I always say to my partner, well, when we first got together, it was really tricky to explain. He has 2 sons, so I've got 13 and 15-year-old stepkids, as well as a little 9-month-old Charlie. And he sort of asked, like, what are your expectations for a weekend? And I was like, hey, look, as long as I can have like an hour and a half to exercise in the morning on a Saturday and ideally Sunday, I'm good. I'm down for any family activity you want. And I think he was like confused, but it's the same. And I always the way I tried to explain it was I'm like a puppy. If I can get that out of my system, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you do get a little bit antsy, maybe a little bit moody. Like it's, and I think a lot of people, like not just really, really super high energy and athletic people, I think a lot of people have it without realizing.
For sure. Yeah. 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 Couldn't agree anymore. And yeah, it's something that levels me out really, really nicely. You know, the exercise side of things. Like for me, I don't ever have a rest day. It's like an active rest day. So it's like something where I can still get that energy out. I'm still letting my body recover, but at the same time, you know, I'm looking after myself as well because, you know, exercise can also be quite destructive if you're trying to do too much as well.
Yeah, I'm keen to get into that. I think you mentioned that as well, cycling. That's my like favorite recovery activity. So good.
So good. Yeah.
Just chill. But yeah, you can still do something. And the fresh air, like you say out here, like going and like looking at the hills and not looking at the screen.
Yeah, I know. It just looks like a painting every day you go outside. So very, very lucky.
Not bad, is it?
Yeah.
So, Liam, so everyone listening, bear in mind that Liam is a performance athlete, but I did just watch a quick video on YouTube of what Liam eats in a day. Love those videos. And I was surprised in a good way. So you are a seriously dialed in nutritionist or focus on nutrition with people, and you know exactly the sort of, you know, I think it was 160 grams of mince, 2 eggs, 100 grams of mushrooms. You could tell me exactly the calories and the macronutrient breakdown that went into your breakfast.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me more about, so run me through your day. I know it'll probably look different based on your training, but you start the day with a few stimulants, which I freaking love a coffee.
Yep.
You mentioned being a coffee snob, and there's a few other things you throw in there because of the volume of training you're doing. Yeah, run me through what a day looks like.
Cool. So it is dependent on the day, but usually I'm up pretty early, anywhere from 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. I'll start the day with some electrolytes or just a pinch of salt and water. So they'll, you know, rehydrate the body first thing in the morning. For me, caffeine has always been a great training tool. And I also enjoy, I guess, the feeling after having some caffeine as well. Coffee and fueling my session is quite important. So for me, I'm getting in some, you know, fast acting carbohydrates into the body. Lately, it's been rice cakes, banana, and just a tiny bit of honey, which I find works quite well.
Yeah.
And then, into training. That's a big thing I learnt over the years was I used to go straight into training just off caffeine. And, you know, the caffeine would definitely help you with your performance, but you wouldn't have that same energy level. Or once the caffeine was gone, you know, you're just kind of working with what you've got. So, pre-fueling to any training is probably something I've put a lot more of a focus on over the last 2 years, I would say.
I noticed in your video you had coconut water.
Well.
That was one of my. I'm definitely not in my endurance era, but when I was doing a lot more endurance training, I did a lot of. I wasn't a performance athlete by any stretch, and this is where we differ, I think. But so I got quite into a ketogenic approach to training, still relatively high protein and things, but I would go out training for my marathon fasted. Actually did my marathon fasted, but what I did start to add back in early on big long runs and during race day was things like coconut water to get that really fast acting carbohydrate back in the body, which when you're fat adapted works like rocket fuel.
Absolutely.
And really good when you're a Londoner and you want to run a marathon but stay skinny. Not so good for like a performance running speed. And I've seen the speed you run. It's quite different to Joe Blogs. How far are you running?
Per week or per day or?
Per day. So what does it sort of look like over the week before we get onto your first post-training meal, I suppose, or like breakfast? What sort of stuff are you doing every day?
I would say currently I'm in a bit of aerobic base building block. So I look at it from more of an hours point per week. So at the moment, I'm probably training 20 hours a week. That's broken down into a lot of bike commuting. So quite low intensity, low impact, low heart rate, but also, you know, boosting up that aerobic system. So there's probably about 8 hours on the bike per week, at least an hour a day, I would say, maybe, you know, kilometer point, 20 kilometers a day. Running wise at the moment, it's every second day just because I'm coming back from a injury. So I'm keeping the load down on the running, but it's a big focus on quality. So rather than getting in lots of running kilometers in the past, running upwards of 120 kilometers a week, currently running about 50 kilometers a week. So over 3 to 4 runs. Swimming, that's something that I've brought into my training as well. So that's twice a week, which I find really good for mobility. I find it really good for lung capacity. Also that aerobic benefit as well of, keeping the heart rate quite low stress, low impact. So, and strength training. Yeah. Keeping those bones and muscles nice and strong to be able to handle the load of running as well. So my week is quite diverse, and I'd probably be, averaging, I think, over the last couple of months, about 20 hours a week.
Yeah. So split over 5 days, 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
And you are like, an endurance athlete. So that's, I always have this battle with people that, like 1 hour a day is like 5% of your day. So it's like, I don't have time. It's like, well, is that really true? But that's really interesting because I think you hit on a lot of really good performance points from like a longevity of performance point of view. So
Absolutely.
You're doing a lot of quality over quantity and a lot of like kind of low steady state stuff, would you say?
Yep.
And I think a lot of people I remember when I started training for the marathon, and most training programs are like run every day, like the nice approach, like run as much as possible. I found, have you come across Mark Sisson?
No, I haven't. No. Yeah.
He used to be a triathlete, and I think that's why I started. But I used to be a swimmer, and he started talking about a more primal approach. So weightlifting, running 3 times a week. So 1 short, 1 medium, 1 long, and tying in other activity there as well. And like you say, weight training and things like that or resistance training to prevent injury.
For sure.
And I think so many people still go for the volume approach without the right recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think there's a big, with social media these days, it's a great tool, but also there's a lot of comparison, me to you to someone else. And that's one thing we find a lot in our coaching. People are, comparing themselves to other people on different journeys, or they'd be coming from a different background, whether, someone's able to handle a little bit more volume because they might have come from, more of a aerobic backgrounds, like where they're running a lot or, cycling, or they're doing quite a lot of hours per week. So I think, apps like Strava and smartwatches are great training tools, but they also can be quite destructive to comparison and people trying to do too much to maybe please others or compare themselves to other people as well. That's why, we're big believers in, personalized coaching, and it's one-on-one. There's no one set program. There's no one set. There's philosophies, obviously, that have carried through over the years, which you've just touched on a couple of great ones. But everybody's body is different. Everyone's come from a different background. So for us, it's like, okay, cool. Where have you come from? What are your goals? Like, there's a lot of coaches out there that will, give people a lot of volume because they'll get results quite fast or run quite fast in a short period of time, because you will progress your speed and your fitness a lot faster than if you're taking a steady progression over 3 times that amount. But obviously, to go faster and ramp your training up a lot quicker is a lot higher risk of injury. So for us, we like to look at the long-term plan versus, okay, you've got a marathon in 6 weeks. A lot of the time we'll turn people down if they come to us, and we don't think the time frame warrants the goal or what we can do in that time.
Yeah, it's like slowing down to speed up kind of approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is hard, but important.
It is hard.
Yeah, it is hard. I want to get onto your injury in a minute. But so what do you eat for breakfast after your activity?
Post-training, again, you touched on the coconut water. I'll do coconut water, sometimes a bit of dried fruit. Strength training, I'll probably more so have the rice cakes and banana and stuff. Workout, I have a big focus on protein, so to get the muscle recovery, and big focus on the micronutrients. So that's something that, I've worked with multiple different dietitians and nutritionists over the years in high performance, and it's always been a focus on macronutrients, which is great. And, being an endurance athlete, a lot of the time you are having a lot of sugar, because a lot of the time it is, fuel in, fuel out side of things. But a big lesson that I learned I'd probably say over the last year was diving deeper into the micronutrient profile of food and,
Mm.
its benefit that it has on the body in terms of gut health, in terms of recovering from exercise, magnitude of benefits. And that for me really inspired me to dive deeper into the nutrition side of things, but also the effects that it had on my body coming, back from recovery just blew my mind. So for me, it was like, okay, cool. Let's put more of a focus in on this, not just for myself,
Yeah.
but for the people we help with nutrition and coaching as well.
Yeah, well, it sounds the same as me. Like you learn and then you deliver, right? So often when you're coaching, when you've been through the issue yourself, it's a lot more helpful. So what was your injury and what do you reckon the big levers were there
Yeah.
in
So
your
I think there
nutrition?
was a number of factors. I think there was too much load in the training. I guess I'm the type of personality that says yes to everything as well. And at that period of time, I said yes to too much. I was on an endurance TV show, which was basically big days of filming. I don't know if anyone's been on a TV set before, seen it. There's not great food. There's not a lot of fueling.
What TV
We
show
were.
was that?
It was called Search for Her, funnily enough, and I ended up with a
Ironic.
fracture. Yeah. So um, basically they took I think 8 women males and they put us through certain series of fitness tests over the day, and they took 2 male 2 female at the end of it, not just based on performance but based on ways they might have handled the challenges and stuff like that. But yeah, that period of time for me, I was still competing as a semi-professional athlete. I was still training 15-20 hours a week, renovating a house, TV show, but the focus wasn't on, the eating, the health, the recovery. And funnily enough, that's my biggest things I focus on as a coach. But for myself, it was the last thing I was focusing on. And unfortunately ended up with 2 stress fractures, one in the lower spine and the core, and then I had one just off the sacrum as well. So yeah, which basically ruled me out for a recovery of 5 to 6 months.
Wowza. That's the dangers of agreeing to too much, saying yes to too much, because we've all been there,
Absolutely. Yeah.
especially running your own business. I find that a real struggle when I first started. You say yes to everything because you're like, I can't say no to anything because it's a scary thing to do.
Yeah. And
You
there are
don't want to say no to
opportunities too, right?
opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
nailed it. There are opportunities, and you're like, hey, if I say no to this, I might not get the opportunity to go on this TV show again, or I might, we might not have our Airbnb up built in time. So, there's obviously a number of factors, and the racing side of things, like, you're always your toughest critic, and you always want to do better, and you always, kind of want to be still known in the sport as well. Coming up to, I guess that age bracket of 35, it's like, you do ask yourself those questions. How many years left do I have competing at this level? Being a dad as well and running, multiple small businesses and, moving to the other side of the world, it's like, okay, well, are we really focusing on ourselves and our recovery and our health, or are we just trying to do too much? And yeah, I just took too much on, and I don't regret it because I think it was such a valuable lesson that was going to get taught to me at some point, and it was just that time for me to learn.
Good learning experience, right? Because I think
Absolutely.
that's the same. You don't learn to build boundaries and say no to stuff unless you've had that kind of experience, like whether it's burnout, injury, something like that. Your body being like, just a...
For sure. Yeah. Couldn't agree anymore. So,
sorry, back to nutrition and micronutrients. So what do you reckon about your nutrition that you changed really helped?
yep. So I've and I think I'm still trying to work this one out, but over the years, I've gone through different, diets and fads and tried this, tried that. I took myself off dairy for quite an extended period of time because I didn't think dairy worked for me. But I think, looking back on it, maybe it was the type of dairy and where it was coming from. But for me, again, like I always would focus on the macronutrient profile. So it's like, okay, carbohydrates, proteins, fats. Yep, nailing that. We're all good. Move on. But when I had this injury, got some bloods done, and my calcium or my bone mineral density was quite low. The expenditure per day was 4,000 to 5,000 calories per day, and we worked out I was probably eating half of that. for a long period of time.
Jesus.
Naturally always sat at a very low body fat, which, to some people that might sound amazing, but it's actually quite challenging as an athlete,
Could
to
you
make sure
tell
you're in
me
it.
what body fat percentage you're at when you say very low? Do you know?
I've scanned anywhere from
Too
like
low.
5 to 7% on average.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Which again, does sound optimal maybe to some people, but as an endurance athlete, you do have a lot of sessions that you are burning, pure fats as well. And when you don't have a lot of that, you basically end up burning your muscle as well.
Oh.
Yeah, I think diving back into the question of the injury, it read up a lot of, I guess, issues in terms of my diet. My calcium was quite low when we looked at that. My iron levels were, 50% of the RDI. Like there was a lot of markers I wasn't hitting. Even though I was eating really clean, for me, I just wasn't getting the right amount of micronutrients into my body. So my body was, the bones struggled. They got weak. My protein was quite low for the amount of load I was doing as well. And some of that was due to restrictions as well. So I, had a period where I did go off eating a lot of red meat and focus more on, the fish and chickens and stuff like that, which is still a great source of protein. But I don't
What
think
caused you to do that?
that is a great question. Like, I think, again, I just went through different fads and different diets and stuff like that. Like we did have cattle for a period of time. My partner's quite like, I wouldn't say, she eats meat. So, but when you do raise your own cattle and stuff, you probably become a little bit more attached to them as well. So we kind of had that period where, we were still eating red meat, but not as much as we needed to. Side of things, went through all the diets, to be honest, except the vegan diet. I never really dived or lifestyle or however you want to say it. But yeah, for me, I've tried it all. Funnily enough, when I went back to, simple proteins, good amount of vegetables, good amount of fiber, like good amount of everything, my body's the best it's been. All my markers are great, feel good. For years, I just thought, my body was bloated as well, but I think I was having, way too much caffeine, way too much fruit, and probably sugars as well, being an endurance athlete, just trying to get all that in. So yeah, there was a few things we had to kind of clean up, but in the process, it taught me a lot more about, looking after the body and kind of the micronutrients that I try and target, which is actually not that hard to do, but you learn the type of foods that, you can get those profiles into your body and recover a lot better. My energy levels are the best they've been. An aesthetic point as well, sometimes can be a bit of a touchy subject for some people, but like aesthetically, you do want to look good, right? So if you can look good and you can perform well, you're kind of winning at both points there as well, in my mind. Yeah, I think it was a big win for me to learn that. Yeah, I dived a lot deeper into my own studies over that period of time as well, and wanted to teach other people that as well. Looking back on it, if you were to say I'd be eating steak, eggs, sauerkraut for breakfast, I probably would have laughed. But now, that's the very, very normal breakfast for me.
Yeah, I love that you ended on that because, well, first of all, I'll say I love that what I saw you eating, like some dried fruit, nuts, things like that, coconut water. So many amateur athletes start and they go energy gel, energy gel, energy gel. And I've had numerous going, I've just run my first half marathon and I'm fatter than I was when I started training. And I'm like, okay, let's peel this back. You probably don't need all of that. Like you say, just the sugar. Whereas you can get you can get the really healthy sugar and carbohydrates from natural sources with added benefits like electrolytes, calcium, things like that.
Yeah.
But yes, steak for breakfast. I think so many people have been put off red meat over the years because of the vegan movement, but also the red meat causes heart disease, which was a study that on cancer. And it was a US study. Have you heard about that? Where they didn't sort of account. Yeah. They didn't account for the fact that it was burgers and sausages in hot dogs. So like wild
processed meats.
Yeah, exactly. And all these people, so the eating red meat was also a huge proxy for eating junk food.
Yeah.
So yes, yeah, they got more cancer. But so you're now eating, I saw your breakfast that you were cooking up.
Yeah.
So that was mince, eggs, some sauerkraut. Tell me little bit more about that.
Yeah, I guess, the focus, like I mentioned earlier, is like high protein. So, for me, I try and target anywhere from 40, 50 grams of protein throughout a meal. A big focus on the micronutrients as well. So depending really what's in the fridge, but I do like to put a lot of color through the meal as well. So, even broccoli and sauerkraut, beetroot, could be carrot, like it doesn't really matter. A lot of the time I just saute a lot of this stuff up, and my mindset back in the day was like, oh, that's more of a dinner, what you're having. So like, and we're probably raised like that as well. You wake up, as a kid, I was raised on Weet-Bix, which, if you're from Australia, you know what they are. If you're not, you might not know what they are, but basically,
No, they are a thing everywhere in the world, I will say. So
okay,
in the UK,
cool.
they're called Weetabix. So there's an A
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
middle.
Yeah.
New
Yeah.
Zealand, obviously huge. And I've actually had about 2 or 3 clients say to me recently, they were like, well, that's the cultural norm. Everyone wants to be a Weet-Bix kid
Yeah.
because then you're going to be strong and fast.
Yeah. Great marketing.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, it's always going to be, protein, which is animal based of a morning. This is post workout as well, so my body's got time, to process it. I don't have, too much in the body as well.
You don't want to eat loads of steak and then go for a run.
No, yeah, I don't think that would work
Absolutely
too well
not.
for me. Yeah,
No.
yeah, or anyone, or maybe I don't know if you're running really, really slow, you could get away with it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a nice big meal, and then yeah, a couple hours later, again, I'm probably eating that same profile of like an animal protein, whether it's some form of red meat, chicken, fish, and then on top of that, I'm having quite good vegetables. Could be good carbs through sweet potatoes. Again, like for me, it's a really big focus on the micronutrients. So I'm getting like the right amount of vitamins in, I'm getting the calciums in, like I'm looking to hit those markers each day, and you learn what food has what in it. And you get to that point where you're like, cool, I know 100% that I'm going to hit my markers for the day times 5. And so it's actually quite easy once you start to eat the right foods. But yeah, I had to go through the process of, learning, okay, how much protein do I need to eat a day to get 2 times my body weight? Where should my carbohydrates be at for where my training's at, and what my body's actually utilizing versus storing. Fats for me, I would say there was a period of time where I was quite high in even good fats, but I feel like since I've scaled that back a little bit, and everybody's different as well. So once I've scaled that back a little bit and put more of a focus towards the protein and carbohydrates, they get utilized. The fats are more so, okay, how do I keep my hormones in check? How do I have a healthy amount of fats coming into my body? But where's that point where, it's too much fat, too little? Again, that's very, personalized. But yeah, I've found a good system for me. I've, found overall a good system for the people that we put on to our nutrition programs as well. To be honest, to simplify it, it's whole foods. I say to people, if you can eat something that's an animal protein and it grows out of the ground, you're good. So try and stay as far as you can away from processed, packaged foods, and simplify it, and life will be good.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary. So you mentioned 2 times your body weight in protein. Yeah. I'm really glad you said that, because that's also quite a niche belief. I know you're very active, but I actually recommend a similar approach, or 2 times lean mass or 2 times their goal body weight sort of thing, just for appetite regulation.
For sure.
It seems to work really well. And then obviously we dial in without measuring them too much, because the majority of people don't want to measure clinically every day.
Yeah.
Like sort of we dial in the proteins and the fats. But so lots of protein is key.
Yeah.
Fats for your hormones. So fat is pretty crucial for testosterone, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Can you tell me any more about that?
Yeah, I guess for me, just regulating that as well. So I never put a focus in on, okay, when I was, I guess, not so deep into the tracking side of things, it was like, oh, this is good fats, I'm having some avocado. Oh, this is good, nuts and, good for my brain health, good for my hormones, stuff like that. But I never really got my bloods done. I never really realized kind of where I was at on that side of things as well. So I think that's quite a big question to dive into as well, like, male to female and the individual side of things as well, because we do have some people we coach that have quite a low amount of fat into their diet as well, but their hormones are, stabilized.
Okay.
And I do have periods as well, I guess, where I might go through a bigger training block where those hormone markers might be off a little bit as well. So I'm always kind of adjusting that around. It is hard being an athlete and figuring out exactly how much you're burning per day, or you're overdoing it here. Like, it's always a bit of a balancing act as well. Like for me, depending on the amount of exercise I've got for the day, or even my stress levels as well, will determine on, like how. I would definitely not say I'm an emotional eater at all. Very systematic, probably a little bit too systematic. Like, I know how much a potato, a tomato, weighs for a general tomato, but I still like to weigh it. Like, just for me, it's like, cool, I know that is exactly what I'm thinking in my head. Getting back to that question, learning the importance that, fats have on balancing out your hormones for me was like a big lesson. Not that I had any issues with it, but it was more so, okay, this is not just for endurance, fuel. This is also to make sure that our, hormones are regulated throughout our body.
Yeah. And so moving on to lunches and dinners, more of the same. I only got up to lunch in your video. So, but I'm guessing it's sort of a similar approach.
Yeah, pretty much. I do have the flexibility, I guess, to cook a lot of my meals quite fresh as well. But I do, if I'm going to eat a type of meat, like last night I cooked steak for dinner. And I like to tell people, if you're going to cook something that you can eat the next day, just cook a little bit more. Just makes life a lot easier. For me, I had steak last night. I had steak for breakfast this morning. It, depends on kind of what I feel like. I've always got, some form of red meat, some form of chicken. Fish, is more so, okay, I feel like fish, I'm going to go buy that. So I would say I alternate between the red meats and the chicken the most, lean meats as well. So I can get quite a high amount of protein without getting a lot of unnecessary fats. And then I get my fats that are, derived with more of a micronutrient profile than eating, just an animal fat off a steak. So for me, I keep all my meats quite lean. And then I get my fats, like right now, I've got some pistachios.
I love pistachios. I can never stop.
I eat 40 of them, and that's 25 grams to the day. 11 grams of fat. So, you learn a lot of this stuff, and I know, cool. Like for me, I want to hit, this amount of fats for the day. I really look forward to the foods now as well. So like, funnily enough, I really struggle to go out for dinner with people. And I think it's because I've eaten so clean. And I also, I get excited to eat the meals I make because I know, the benefit they have for my body, but also I find they process a lot better through my body as well. So for me, it's quite based on animal protein. I've always got some form of good carbohydrate in there as well. And then I'm loading it up with like a lot of, good stuff like broccoli and just things that, for me, I really enjoy. Some people, we coach to say, I hate broccoli. Okay, cool. Well, let's bring another type of green into your body. Let's look making sure that, your body's remaining nice and alkaline as well and balanced as well, not too acidic. I think, as simple as, animal protein, it grows out of the ground, you're pretty safe. But my meals interchange between, could be steak for breakfast, could be steak for lunch, could be. I don't usually do chicken for breakfast. It's usually mince or steak. And I usually find the chickens, lunch or dinner.
I know what you mean. That just doesn't appeal for some reason, chicken for breakfast.
I just don't, it doesn't feel like it's got as much of a breakfast appeal to it. Yeah.
But that's really interesting what you said about the fats, and you eat lean meat. So a lot of people I work with, they've done what I like to call like a sloppy keto diet before. So they're eating fatty steak, they're eating cheese, they're eating nut butters, they're eating like way more avocado than they need. And so we take the approach of, exactly. So if you're eating a lean meat, avocado or some cheese, perfect. Otherwise, leave the fat on your steak. Don't worry about it. You probably don't need, spoonfuls of mayo.
For sure.
So it's
Yeah.
all about balancing it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And that's why it's nice to educate people and say, fat is not the enemy. The amount of fat, because it's so easy to overconsume fat. And that's one thing we've realized with working with a lot of people say, oh, I actually don't eat that much. And it's like, oh, you're putting on, 5 tablespoons of peanut butter on top of your acai bowl, which is already
Because it's
1,000
clean.
calories. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
clean. It's
Yeah.
marketed as clean, but you don't actually understand what's in it. Probably doesn't provide a ton of micronutrient profile or value in terms of, and also, I guess, staying satiated throughout the day as well. So, it's easy just to snack throughout the day or be very high carb and low fat, low protein, and you're hungry. So you're like, oh, I've got to eat. I'm going to keep eating. Versus like, that's a big thing for me. It's like, have a big solid protein meal with some good carbohydrates and, good fats as well. And then I'm finding I don't need to snack throughout the day. Like, and if I'm snacking, I'm having something that provides benefit to my body and a micronutrient, profile that I'm like, cool, I want to hit the market for the day. And I know through my 4 main meals that I need to get in, my pistachios or my kiwi fruit or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I think that's lots of people are probably listening to us thinking that we're absolutely mental. And like, especially talking about like weighing and measuring every single ounce of your food. But what I want people to listen to you and realize is that as a dialed in athlete and as someone coaching athletes, you need to be. And I've also done that in the past. So I have stringently tracked everything into my fitness pal, known exactly how many macronutrients, micronutrients I've been eating in a day, to the point where I know now. And like you were saying the other day in your video, you were like, that is this much, that is this much. And you're still measuring, which is really awesome because you probably need to. But I always encourage people not to want to track forever if they don't feel like they want to, if that's not a goal for them. But it's so powerful to know what you're eating. And even just for your mindset, to know what you're eating and to know, if you write it down, put it in MyFitnessPal, you can see the numbers. I don't believe in overly tracking for like Joe blogs, but I think a lot of people just miss out on even knowing.
Just a day. We suggest, if people just do a day. And, before we even get them to come across to us, we say track a day and then we can discuss your day and, where your protein sits, your carbohydrates. We could give you the best possible plan, but you might not like any of those foods. So we like to look at what they're already eating and also, try and educate them that, what you're actually eating for the day doesn't have next to no micronutrient profile. It's just like you're just filling your stomach. It's amazing, what you see some people eat for breakfast, or again, the overconsumption of, could be fats, could be way too many carbohydrates that they're not burning and stored through their body. And a lot of the time we find the protein's very, very low. So yeah, I guess a big part of what we want to do is educate people into eating, to fuel their body to recover, but also, the benefit of these foods that can have on their life in general.
Yeah, and how they feel throughout the day, their brain, everything. So to give you a little background into my program that I offer people now, and I do tailored coaching every now and again when people need it. But after working with over 100 people on tailored nutrition, everyone was coming to me eating about 45 teaspoons of sugar worth of carbohydrates, which if you're not an endurance athlete, your muscles do not need the glycogen. They do not soak it up, and it has to be processed by your liver, and it ends up getting stored as body fat. But because of the consumption landscape that we live in, the abundance of carbohydrates with fats in them as well, but carbohydrates and fats are so prolific throughout our food supply. And they come to me eating, like, not dissimilar to some of the things that you've mentioned, thinking they're healthy, like rice cakes with honey and nut butter. And actually, if you're a woman not doing more than 5,000 steps a day, it's not really beneficial when you put that on top of sandwiches and pasta and muesli for breakfast.
Yeah, for sure.
And the dietary guidelines in New Zealand still only recommend 50, maybe 60 grams of protein for a full-grown male.
Very low. Yeah.
That's bad. Yeah, so that's what the majority of people are eating because they've listened to one vegan influencer, one environmentalist. Yeah, and all these things just add up. So they've limited their protein, they limited their red meat, and they've ended up eating a load of processed, healthy carbohydrates.
Absolutely.
And they end up on my doorstep 10 kilos heavier than they want to be.
Yeah. And you see it
Yeah.
time and time again. There's a lot of agendas being pushed these days on social media, and I think, yeah, well, we just try and simplify it. Like, we know we're not trying to sell, a bulk amount of programs. Not that we have anything against it, but I think, the big thing for us and sounds for you is just educating people of, like, how to eat properly. Yeah, to
I
look
think
after
it's
their bodies.
frustrating, and we probably agree on the fact that it's just very frustrating that the rest of the world seems so far behind. So
Yeah,
it has
absolutely.
to, it gets to the point where people either really need coaching because they have severe health issues, or they really want to lose weight because they're feeling so down on themselves, or they're trying to be an athlete and they're like, I am lost because what I'm eating isn't working for me. So yeah, it'd be good if the rest of the world caught up, but it is fun to help people and try and educate them.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully this will be helping.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to an hour, Liam, and I'm respectful of your time. So I'm going to ask you for a few takeaways in a minute, takeaway dessert. But first, can we talk about the F5 challenge?
Yep. So
And the mistakes that you see a few people make, because that's what I heard you mention the other day. And I know the challenge has
I might get in trouble
progressed.
for this one.
No. This is respectful. So I used to work with F45 in Queenstown and do nutrition seminars with them at the before and at the end, because the challenge used to be very restricted calories and they used to see people bounce back quite hard. So we almost did like a reverse dieting seminar at the end so that people didn't go, wow, like take away and 20 beers straight out of it and balloon. So I'm asking this in a positive way. So you've noticed the challenge has changed. But also, how do you feel? I know we've probably both seen some people, I'll say women, but people go too hard too soon. So off you go.
Yep. So I'll use myself as an example. Like, when the first challenge first came out, I was a new trainer. I wanted to be involved, and it was very restrictive. I think at that point, I would have been eating 1,700 calories. I'd taken caffeine completely out. I basically restricted
Yeah, they made you
myself.
quit coffee.
Yeah, it
I
used to be
remember that.
quit the caffeine, quit everything at the start. And I think, it was designed, and I could be wrong, but looking at it now, I would say it would be designed for mass weight loss. So you would have someone come in and lose, 10, 15, 20 kilos, and they'd be celebrated and they'd be, win something. And what I would see over that period of time, like you said, they would gain that weight straight back because they were so restrictive, and they'd be like, cool, challenge is done. I'm straight back to, 4,000 calories I'm eating a day. I made the mistake. I restricted myself so much. I actually got my body fat down to, like, again, like, could be a couple of percent off, but I was down to about 3% body fat. And I got really sick. And, when I saw the doctor was like, okay, yeah, did the scan, and your body fat's so low that, if you had too much Panadol, your body wouldn't be able to absorb it. And you're not in a good spot. So I actually got quite sick. I lost a lot of muscle mass. I basically look back on it now and I was like, I kind of used myself as a bit of an experiment for this system that,
right? Yeah,
was quite flawed back then. But I think over the years as well, there's been better education, and I think they've brought in more of a holistic approach. Like, okay, rather than we completely focus on weight loss, which is obviously still the goal for people doing it. They want to lose weight. They want to look better. It's more of a focus of it being sustainable. But for myself, being in that space, I'm like, don't tell me how much weight you want to lose. Tell me what you're going to do in your life that or what are the small things that you can add into your life that might result in weight loss or you gaining some muscle as well. So I think it's a lot more of a positive aspect on it now, and also support for the people doing it, where they're focusing on bringing these habits or changing their habits to have more of a positive influence on, their health and their life as well. So it could be them just changing slightly what they're eating, or like, there's a lot of females in particular that come in and they're like, oh, I fast till lunchtime and then I eat this and then I have this. And I'm like, oh, you're actually having next to no protein for the whole day. You wonder why you've gained no muscle of training here for a certain amount of years, or you wonder, why, a number of issues that could be deficient through their eating structure as well. So I think there's a lot more education now. I think it's a lot more positive, and I think people having that window to like, okay, cool, I need to lock in for 6 weeks and make some changes, or that education of, oh, I didn't actually realize how little protein I was going to have. I'm going to add a little bit more protein in, and people get positive results from it as well. I think, it's gone from, being celebrated in how much weight you can lose, to, more of a focus towards, okay, how can you just make your health better over the next 6 weeks? I'm wearing that shirt now, 1% better every day. And I think it's a great slogan because, if you can be 1% better each day, over a week, that's 7%, it just adds up, right? And you're just constantly going to be just a little bit better, a little bit more health conscious. And, the studies are just phenomenal with how powerful the gut is on mood and, your health and your life. And I think that until people experience that, they might just think that that's the norm. And then once their health or their gut health is in check, they feel better, they're less bloated, they don't have as much brain fog. There's just a million different things, that can kind of come into it. So I think that's probably a long answer to your question, but I think it's good for people to be educated. Yeah, a little bit more.
I think I've loved seeing how the challenge has evolved over the years of being like doing it F45 for maybe like 8 years now. And they, just seeing from weight loss to they started incorporating body composition and gaining muscle. And now you say it's like a more holistic approach, like there's stretches and there's outside workouts. And I love how it's changed. And I think also I can't say it's bad to do an 8-week challenge. I think because I tend to work with people on 3, 6 or 12-week blocks.
Yeah.
So, and I do think there is a place for periods of really dialing it in and
100%.
weights, right? So, for training wise, you go through periods of really, really building volume, periods of recovery. And that's actually quite important, I think, in life and training.
For sure. Absolutely. You can't be, although I try to be dialed 24/7, it's very hard to be completely dialed in 24/7. So I think, them having a window of 6 weeks, I'm going to lock in for the 6 weeks, but let's still focus on you carrying those habits through after the 6 weeks. So don't make them unattainable. Make sure that, it's quite simple, really. It's like, take out the things that don't provide a lot of benefit to your health, or just minimize that a little bit. Portion control, right? So it's like, I didn't realize that eating a block of chocolate per night was bad for me. Okay, well, this is why it's not great for you. But a small amount of dark chocolate is great for you. So, a bit of education there and, not being too restrictive, like that they can go out and have a drink with their friends or they can go out for dinner every now and then. But it's like, try not to do that absolutely every single night. And, you will see benefit in your health for sure.
The hashtag balance, right? But it's what most people start off with. They start to eat healthy sort of 4 days a week. And I saw the other day a statistic, 4 days a week of health and then 3 days you write it off. That's 57%. So you're only trying 57% of the time and people expect to get 100% results.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's finding that balance that's like sustainable, enjoyable, sustainable, etc.
Eat clean for 5 days and then have 5,000 calories over the weekend, and you pretty much reverse all the good stuff you've done through the week as well.
Yeah, looking at a weekly calorie load rather than daily, I think is an interesting concept.
Sure. Yeah, agreed.
Right. Yeah. So Liam, we've hit an hour. Based on your clients that you work with at the moment, and everything that you've learned over the last year or so, what would you say are one or two really key takeaways for people?
I would say if you're not adding in movement per day, add in 30 minutes a day. We all have time. We touched on that at the start, but there is 24 hours in the day. Write down, your non-negotiables. You got 8 hours of work. You want 8 hours of sleep. You might have, a few things in between that, but give yourself, 30 minutes of movement a day. And it's needed. I think in terms of diet wise, just keep it simple. So, scale it right back and look at, beneficial foods for your body. And as simple as, okay, let's go with a protein source, a carbohydrate source, and a healthy fat source. If you're unsure about that, reach out to a nutritionist and learn. It's good to learn. So you can work with, someone like yourself, very educated, and you'll be able to teach them how to, fuel their body or just learn about, what foods are good for them as well. And I'd also say, I like the quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And it keeps coming up in my head at a daily reminder. And I think comparison can be positive, but I think a lot of the time in today's society, if you're constantly comparing to, a certain body image or a friend or where you were 10 years ago, and, you might have just had kids or you come back from holidays or whatever, it's like, just simplify it and enjoy the process and just put a slight focus on being, 1% better each day, which, adds up over time.
As a postpartum woman, I will 100% agree with that. I feel like we could do another whole podcast on body image and social media at some
For
stage.
sure. Yeah.
But for now, Liam, thank you for your time, and I will let you go. Thanks
My
again.
pleasure. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening
Chat
in.
soon. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Lifestyle Design Secrets podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please do stop and take 2 seconds to subscribe and leave us a review. It means the world to us. If you are curious about working with us or checking out our new bite-sized guides or our full body reset transformation programs, please do head on over to our website, which is www.amysfitnessandnutrition.co.nz. Have a great day.